for this electronic meeting, and all members of the commission have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom and YouTube and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. We have provided calendar notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar, and we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us. That's remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us, or call 603-271-3043. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Finally, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where they are and if anyone else is in the room with you at this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. And Rosemary, could you call the roll, please? Rosemary is here, is she not?
She's muted, right?
Yes.
It looks
okay,
like
Rosemary, could you unmute, please, and call the roll?
I think her screen is frozen.
Oh dear. Okay. All right. Let's see. Is Ava still here? Ava, do you have the roll?
Hi, Senator. I am still here. I can pull it up. I don't know if that's formally the appropriate way to do that, but I can pull it up for you and I can share it. But I think someone on the commission would need to call the roll.
Okay, very well. And
I can share that with you if you want to do that.
If you've got the list right in front of you, that would be great.
And I'll try to get Rosemary back on, or Representative Rung back on. I think she just got booted off.
I have an up-to-date, I think, an up-to-date list of, at least a list that was published for our purposes. I would hope it's complete.
Okay, Representative Woods, would you like to read the roll for us, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had lost the
internet.
I moved. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, Representative Rung, would you please read the roll?
All right.
And if everyone will unmute so you can say here.
Yeah. Ms. Forty.
Yes, hi. I'm in Litchfield and I'm alone.
Okay. I actually, I had to move. So I'm actually, does somebody have a copy of the full roll? Let me.
Representative Rung, I can send you just the list of members and you can go.
Yeah, could you do that and I'll read from that. Thanks.
I just sent it in the chat to you, Senator.
Oh, okay. I'm just a little discombobulated because of my technical problem. All right, here we go. All right. Okay, bear with me for a second. Okay, Representative Murphy.
I'm home alone. Actually, I have children in the house, but I'm in a room by myself.
Okay. Representative Thomas.
In a room in Merrimack by myself.
Okay. Representative Bohm.
Home alone.
Okay. Senator Deitch.
In Peterborough alone.
Okay. Mr. Wimsatt.
In Concord and alone.
Okay. Ms. Mesmer. Ms. Mesmer is not responding. Ms. Harrington.
I'm in Merrimack and I am alone in the room.
Okay. Ms. Forty. I know I called on you. Okay.
Yep, that's okay. Still alone.
Okay. Ms. Parody.
I'm in Bedford with my 5 and 7-year-old daughters.
Oh, okay. The clerk is home in Merrimack. My husband is in the house someplace, so you may see him in the background. Representative Nodder.
I'm home in Merrimack and my family is here.
Okay. Senator Chandler.
Good morning. This is Shannon Chandley. I am at home in Amherst, and there is no one currently in the room with me.
Okay. Ms. Bush.
Good morning. I am in Concord in my office, currently alone.
Okay. Ms. Costello. Ms. Costello doesn't respond. Representative Woods.
Yes, I'm here alone in my office. My wife is in the house, but not in this room.
Okay.
I'm in Bow.
Okay. Mr. Bazazian. Mr. Bazazian?
Chris, you're muted.
In my office in Manchester with no one present in the room.
Okay. Ms. DeVries. Okay. Mr. Ayotte.
In my office in Concord alone.
Okay. Senator Deitch, I've completed the roll.
Thank you very much. And
Excuse me, I'm sorry, it was a little late. Mindy Mesmer by myself in Rye, New Hampshire, in my house by myself.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have a quorum, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yes. Okay, so to continue, let's review the minutes. Does anyone have, do I have a motion to accept the minutes, or do we have to start with?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bendazian. Okay, and does anyone have any changes or amendments? Mr. Wimsatt?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at those, on the second page of the minutes, about 5 paragraphs down, there's a paragraph that starts with the words Representative Rung asked. And in the last sentence of that paragraph, it states that Mr. Wimsatt said the soil testing, etc. And I was a little confused by that, so I looked at online at the YouTube recording, and I realized it was actually Jeff Martz that said that. And actually, he did respond to some soil borings that were done, but when he talked about the data being consistent with expected levels, he was actually talking about the groundwater data. So I would propose that we could change it to Jeff Martz said the soil testing and the groundwater testing at Gilbert Crossing is consistent with expected levels.
Okay, I've got that. Thank you.
Sure. And then just one other item, just a typo. The third page, the third paragraph down, it makes reference in the final sentence to safe siting. And I think the word siting there should be S-I-T-I-N-G rather than S-I-G-H-T.
Okay, thank you.
I think we had caught that earlier. Okay, are there any other changes? No? Okay, so all in favor of accept the minutes as amended?
We have to take a roll for that.
Oh, that's right.
I'll go quick. Okay, so the motion is to accept the minutes as amended. Oh, did we get it? Did somebody make? I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I'll second.
Okay. Okay, the roll is Ms. Forty.
Yes.
Mr. Wimsatt.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Ms. Harrington.
Yes.
Representative Woods.
Yes.
Senator Deitch.
Yes.
Representative Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Bush.
Yes.
Representative Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Badazian.
Yes.
Senator Chandler.
Yes.
Ms. Parody.
Yes.
Representative Bohm.
Yes.
Representative Nodder.
Yes.
Mr. Ayotte.
Yes.
Ms. Mesmer.
Yes, sorry.
Great. The motion passes.
Okay. Now we will move on to the NHDES report, which on the agenda said it would include the outcome of the Saint-Gobain petition. We realize that that outcome will not be available until September 10th. However, it would be wonderful if we could hear any updates on the SSWA and the site investigations and the groundwater reports from Saint-Gobain and their assessor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Mike Winstat, Service Director of the DES Waste Management Division. So the update for this meeting really contains, I guess, three components. One is I want to give you an update on the 3M Plymouth RMI lawsuit regarding the PFAS standards that were set by rule back in September of 2019. And then I'll give you an update on Saint-Gobain with respect to the variance request, the Town of Merrimack's appeal, the site investigation, the sampling, and the waterline work, and then just a couple of notes about the TCI facility in Amherst. So starting with the 3M lawsuit, I think that's the biggest news that I have to provide today. So as I think was perhaps mentioned at the July meeting, in the wake of House Bill 1264, which established the 4 PFAS standards as a matter of law, the Attorney General's office filed motions for expedited review or expedited hearing and also for dismissal of the preliminary injunction back in July. And since that time, actually just this past week, just within about the last, I think, 48 or 72 hours, the Merrimack County Superior Court judge has ruled. And what also happened in the meantime is that the town of Plymouth, which is one of the plaintiffs, actually filed for non-suit, meaning they wanted to leave the lawsuit. And so that decision was very significant. It basically granted Plymouth's petition for non-suit, so they're no longer part of the lawsuit. And it also very significantly vacated the preliminary injunction. So as we understand it, what that means is that the rules that the DES promulgated back in September of 2019 are now in full effect. And we don't need to we don't believe we need to do any further or amended rulemaking. So that's really significant. And what it also means is that now with the preliminary injunction vacated, the case still pens, but just with the remaining plaintiffs, which are 3M and RMI and a farmer who had applied some biosolids. So that's very significant, and that we were, once 1264 was signed, we certainly viewed the standards as having effect, but it cast some doubt on what the rules meant. But now that the preliminary injunction has been vacated, it seems that things are much clearer, and we are proceeding apace with our implementation of those rules.
Great.
So I don't know if there's any questions about that. Maybe I could take them at the pleasure of the chair, how you'd like me to handle that.
Any questions on the 3M suit? Mindy or Ms. Mesmer?
I think I'll hold my question because I have a feeling those questions may be answered in the next section.
Okay.
All right. Please continue. Mr. Wamsett.
All right. Sure. So the second topic is the Saint-Gobain, and we have a number of items to cover in that. First of all, the variance request. And again, as the chair indicated, there was some confusion about the date by which DES would render its decision on that. And it is in fact Thursday, September 10th, so next week. So it's our expectation that when that decision is issued, all the commenters and hearing participants who participated in the public hearing that was held for that will receive email notification of that decision. And then probably the following day, on Friday, September 11th, the decision will be posted to DES's website. But if you were a commenter or a participant in the hearing, we have your email address, you will likely receive an email notification of the decision probably late Thursday afternoon on the 10th. The next topic is the Town of Merrimack's appeal, and just by way of reference, confirming that the the town's appeal of the air emissions permit before the Air Resources Council is scheduled for hearing before the council on December 14th. And then the next topic is the site investigation. You may recall that at our meeting in July, we had Jeff Martz here, who gave a pretty detailed discussion and answered a number of questions regarding the comment letter that DES had issued on the site investigation. And I think it was around August 20th, the department and Saint-Gobain representatives and consultants met to discuss and review those comments. And right now, Saint-Gobain and its consultants are working on a response to that by way of supplemental site investigation proposal. So we'll look forward. We'll certainly, once we receive that, we can brief the commission on that. The next topic is with respect to Saint-Gobain is the water line. The final water line project out of the first round here is slated for construction this fall in Litchfield. The contract was bid and was awarded, and we believe that the substantial completion of the water main should be complete by November 23rd. That's the date in the contract. And then the bids for, or the request for bids for the specific service connections of individual homes is expected to be, those bids are expected to be in next week. And then that work would also proceed apace on the heels of the water main installation, such that we believe that that project will be completed by the end of 2021, so this fall. So that's good news.
Excuse me, did you say the end of 2020 or the end of 2021?
I'm sorry, yeah, end of 2020, just the end of this fall. Thank you for the clarification. And then the last of all, the sampling, Saint-Gobain, on the heels of the House Bill 1264 are, being implemented and signed, have been proceeding to do additional sampling of residential wells within the consent decree area. And they have proceeded at pace on that and are obtaining additional access agreements to do additional sampling of residences in Bedford, Londonderry, and Merrimack. So that work is moving forward. So that's the update that I have for Saint-Gobain. Perhaps if there are any questions about that before I finish with TCI, be happy to entertain those.
Do we have questions on Saint-Gobain? Yes, Ms. Mesmer.
So I just want to clarify those comments you just made. So they are moving ahead with sampling the residences, the additional residences, which we suspect may be above the new standards also. Okay. So there's about how many residences do you think they're now slated to sample? And do we have results from the previous sampling that they were doing?
Yeah, I don't know the specific numbers. It's a significant number of homes that we're interested in, and they are included in 3 different communities, Bedford, Litchfield, Bedford, Londonderry, and Merrimack. And so I just don't have the number for you, but it's a significant number. It's a significant additional sampling effort. And by that, I mean, I'm sure it's well in excess of 100 homes. But I don't know the exact number.
Okay. Are the results on the website for the residences that were sampled before the injunction? Do you know?
Yeah, we certainly do post the results. I don't know how up to date that is at this point. I can find that out.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question is, as a result of that sampling that was agreed to and done before the injunction, are there significant, is there a significant extension of the area of contamination that you're aware of over what we understood previously?
Well, we believe that, and keep in mind, this sampling is all being done within the boundaries that were outlined in the consent decree. So we believe and understand that there are, and knew all along, there would be additional homes that would be included that would have to be provided with water service once we had, with a lower standard in place. So there's no question that additional water line extensions and provision of alternate water will be required as a result of these sampling efforts.
Does anyone else have questions?
Excuse me, I have a question. I have two questions, actually.
Representative Thomas.
Thank you. Is Saint-Gobain committed to providing bottled water to these impacted wells that they're now going to be testing?
Under the consent decree, if the agency implements a new standard, which we've now done, and that is settled, then under the consent decree, the company is responsible to both sample and if above those new standards, provide bottled water and make provision for permanent alternate water. So yes.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, at the last meeting, we learned about a plan from Saint-Gobain that was still in development about switching these private wells over to a public water source at some point. And I think we heard that the anticipated time for releasing that plan was about 2 years. Will that plan include these new provisions? I'm assuming it will.
Yeah, I think that's what was being referenced. So one of the reasons for that time frame is that there's still a number of wells that still need to be sampled. So the process and unfortunately, there's a somewhat time-consuming process for doing that because the Saint-Gobain needs to contact those individual residences and obtain access agreements to do the sampling. So there tends to be a bit of a lag there that can be somewhat frustrating, but that's the reason for that time frame being suggested by Joe.
And just one more follow-up on that topic. Is Saint-Gobain doing any connection to public water now, or are they waiting until this 2-year, this document is finalized?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they're still doing a water line construction project this fall that was related to their earlier commitments. As we get additional data that outlines where additional water line installations may be required, we'll be looking at that and figuring out what would be a reasonable timeline for design and implementation of new water line projects.
Actually, anyone else? So I have one question. Mr. Wimsatt, are we automatically going back and providing water to anyone who previously was tested and did not fall under the old limit, but does fall under the new limit?
I think that's largely already been done by Saint-Gobain.
Okay. Any other questions about Saint-Gobain before we move to Amherst? Okay.
Okay, and I just had a couple of notes regarding TCI and Amherst. So as many of you may know, TCI operated a facility in Amherst, which has not been active since early 2000s. And they moved their manufacturing operations to Manchester. And so, it's been important to the agency to try to get stack testing data at their Manchester facility for two reasons. One is to understand, whether they might be having any impact in the Manchester area, but also to try to draw, to the extent possible, any conclusions about what emissions might have looked like in Amherst during the operations in that town. And that took a long time to get that accomplished, but I'm happy to report that the week of August 17th, the stack test was completed at their Manchester facility, and we expect that data from that will likely be reported mid to so at the next appropriate commission meeting that we have some information, we can report on that. And then there is additional sampling that needs to be done in Amherst and site investigation work around that facility, and we are working to compel TCI to do that work. And that's all I have for TCI.
Okay, I will just mention for the record that my husband has entered the area. Moving on.
Can I have a question? Mr. Wimsatt, when you mentioned that additional testing at TCI and Amherst has to be done and you're arranging it, has TCI been resisting that? Or do you see that there might be more of a formal challenge to the request by the department?
Yes, we're not getting direct cooperation on additional site investigation and testing requirements from TCI. So that's the problem we've still got to address.
What's the process of the department to address that? Do they enter into any type of formal court action or department action on that to compel them to agree to the testing?
Yeah, I wouldn't comment in this specific on that because that would be an enforcement matter that wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on here. But I can tell you in a general sense, when we're not getting compliance really on any matter before the department from someone, there are a number of tools that are available to us. So, you know, the first and the least and the most general is simply to ask for it. When we don't get that, we can issue an administrative order. If that is not effective or determined not to be the best approach, then injunctive relief can be sought through the courts. So there are a number of ways that can be done. But I wouldn't comment about how we might accomplish that in this case.
Okay, but in this situation, you're at the first stage, the ask.
Right, we've requested that this work be done, and it has not been. That request has not been.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have with respect to my update.
Just one last question. Do you know when Saint-Gobain will be getting back to you since you're meeting with them about the site investigations?
Yeah, I don't know the date. My expectation it would be sometime this fall, but I don't know the exact date.
How serious is are the leaks and so forth that are ongoing? I mean, our first concern as a commission was to stop the ongoing pollution. So can you give us any sense of how serious an impact the issues from the site investigation report is?
So the site investigation that's being done at the Merrimack plant is largely trying to assess, characterize existing, the existing conditions as a result of past releases of PFAS compounds at the site. So, and I think it needs to be said that site will be contaminated with PFAS regardless of how much we learn about the contamination or how robust the remedial measures that are ultimately implemented. That site is so sufficiently contaminated, it will be contaminated with PFAS for decades to come. What our goal here with the site investigation is characterize as fully as possible the soil and groundwater conditions at the site so that we can, require them to develop as robust remedial measures as can be developed to try to control that, to limit the source, to remove as much source material as possible. But, we know that we've got, both overburden, shallow soil and bedrock groundwater contamination there that's very, very significant because it's essentially ground zero. So that site investigation is really about characterizing what's already happened. The biggest concern that we've had with respect to ongoing releases that could affect the community is trying to characterize and address what the air emissions are, because we believe that's the primary pathway that caused this contamination throughout these communities in southern New Hampshire. So the permit that was issued by the Air Division requiring that a thermal oxidizer be installed, that's probably the most, I would say that's the most important thing that's happening right now with respect to any potential ongoing releases. And so, I guess in response to your question, we're not specifically aware of ongoing, what we would call a traditional release from the plant to soil and groundwater as a result of operations at the facility. The nature of the materials that they're using right now, much lower concentrations of the regulated compounds than materials that they used in the past. So we don't believe that, we don't have information to suggest right now that any releases that could be occurring are having a meaningful impact on soil and groundwater at the site as a result of just general releases that theoretically could occur. I know it's a little convoluted way to answer it, but I guess what I'm suggesting is that really the main thing to focus on here is the air emissions, and that's what the air permit and the thermal oxidizer are intended to address.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful. My question, when I read the report and I saw that we still have things going into the river, I guess that loss into the river is from the existing pollution in the groundwater.
That's right. There's right. So there's soil and groundwater contamination that mean that every time it rains, or even just when even when it's not raining, when groundwater is flowing through the site and contributing to the stormwater system, groundwater that leaks into the stormwater system, there are contaminants that are in that discharge water. That it's not to suggest that there is a processed water or a wastewater discharge that's contributing to that. The only caveat I would place on that is we're still trying to get really our arms around what happens when it rains with respect to potential leaching, either from the rainwater collection system itself or the roof materials at the site. We're still trying to really run that to ground. So that's, I guess, if there were a, it's not necessarily really considered a process discharge, but to the extent that the roof is contaminated in a way that it contributes during rain events, I guess you could look at that as certainly as an ongoing discharge.
I see. That's very helpful to me. Ms. Messmer? You'll need
Yes, thank you. Another question about I'm a little unclear about the town's appeal and how that may relate to the permit. So the appeal, as I understand it, has to do with the fact that there's no HF scrubber on the permit any longer. Now that the standards have been put back into effect, the injunction lifted, but the hearing for the town appeal isn't till December, yet I think you're going to rule by the 10th of September. So how does that play into the long-term schedule, or how could it impact the long-term construction of the air emissions controls?
Sure. So I'm only going to answer to the extent that I'm qualified. This is largely an air division matter that I have not been super close to, but I can tell you that it's important to distinguish between the variance request, which DES is going to rule on this coming week, which was essentially a request by Saint-Gobain to extend the time period that it has to construct and begin operations of the thermal oxidizer under the air permit. So they're currently, as I understand it, required to have that constructed and up and running by February of 2021. And they've asked for a variance from that requirement to give them more time to do that. And that variance request is what the agency will be ruling on next week. The appeal of the town of Merrimack they're certainly related because they're about the same thing, but it's a separate matter in the sense that the town, as I understand it, the town of Merrimack has appealed on a number of grounds with respect to the issuance of the air resources permit that permits and requires Saint-Gobain to install a thermal oxidizer. And part of that argument is that it should have also, as I understand it, is that it should have also included an HF scrubber, a hydrogen fluoride scrubber. So, we don't, the two are separate in the sense that DES will rule on the variance request next week, and that will be that, whatever that answer is that answer. And then the appeal of the permit is a separate matter that will be heard before the council in December. And, we don't know what will happen as a result of that. So I I would really hesitate to try to opine on how that might work because I'm not close to it, and it's also a legal matter that's not settled yet.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Wimsatt?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Wendy Thomas. In the investigation, you're looking at the soil and the water. Are you also looking at the surrounding flora and produce?
To date, we have not done much work in that regard. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of sort of information available to us to figure out what we would do with that data, or how we would interpret that data. But I wouldn't take it off the table. I think that's something that could happen in the future. But right now, the site investigation work is largely focused on the soil and groundwater right at the facility and in the near environs to the facility.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes, Representative Ron.
Yeah, Mr. Wimsatt, if the variance request is denied and no other actions are going to create a delay in Saint-Gobain having to meet that February deadline, but they don't, what avenues does the department have? Can they issue a manufacturing stoppage, or do they just get fined? What would be the recourse of the state if that deadline is missed?
Sure. Well, once again, I'm going to really hesitate to comment specifically on what the agency might or might not do in that particular circumstance. Tell you is that if there's a deadline for construction of something or performance of some kind of action in order to achieve compliance that isn't complied with, then those same tools that I described before are available, could be done. I mean, the permit itself is enforceable, so it provides any permit that we issue is an enforceable instrument. So the agency can go to the court with a violation of a permit looking for injunctive relief. It could, I guess, issue an administrative order concurrently. In some cases, what's called an administrative order on consent can be entered into, in which if the parties can work out an alternate date that gets the facility back on track for compliance, we sometimes do that. So there's a number of options available, all the way from the lightest touch administrative all the way through to injunctive relief in the courts.
Okay, are we set with Mr. Wimsatt? I really appreciate your testimony, and I appreciate the sensitivity of discussing legal issues in an open public forum.
Sure. My pleasure. Okay. Thank you.
Can we hear next from Health and Human Services, please?
Hi, yes, Katie Bush here. So I have some general updates I can provide from the department, the division, and then we do have a guest, Dr. Christine Bean from the Public Health Lab on the line. So I will sort of go through some general updates and then transition to introducing her. So first, I just wanted to update everyone. I think everyone knows already that we were awarded the collaborative ATSDR Apple Tree Grant. Both DES and DHHS are working collaboratively. This grant has two components, really supporting site investigations at hazardous waste sites with a community education and outreach component, but also supporting a new initiative focused on safe siting of early child care facilities. And so at this point, we're focused on hiring those key positions to support that grant work and starting to compile some of the environmental hazard data that we would then link to child care locations. So that work is underway. I did want to make sort of a side note. We have monthly project meetings with our ATSDR funders, and we were provided an update on both the Pease and Southern New Hampshire projects that are separate from our grant, but that ATSDR is leading. Just that recruiting for the Pease project, I know that's a little bit of a tangent here, but still relevant. We'll start again in September for the Pease project, and that the health consultations that ATSDR is working on for Southern New Hampshire are underway by the health risk assessors at ATSDR, who hope to have results to share soon. Coming back to some collaborative work at the two agencies, we were awarded a second collaborative grant from the CDC's National Center for Environmental Health, focused on building environmental health capacity And we'll be leveraging existing well water quality data from across the state to help inform community outreach and hopefully drive action and policy at the state level. We'll be integrating data from multiple sources, and then the goal is to use that data to identify targeted areas for outreach and education. I provided an update last time on the biomonitoring program. They continue to work on finalizing their TRACE participant summary report. As you might recall, that work was delayed due to COVID-19 response activities within the public health lab, but the biomonitoring team plans to complete those reports and send them to participants within the next few months, hopefully within this calendar year of 2020. And at that point, I think Senator Deach and others, it would be great to think about coordinating with the multiple environmental health commissions, a presentation from the biomonitoring team. And so we can be in touch sort of as that is ready to share in a public setting. Of course, it's always important to communicate with the study participants first, but we can plan that. A little bit of an update. Last time I provided an update on some work that the cancer program is doing in collaboration with Dartmouth and the Cancer Registry. So work is underway there with funding from the New Hampshire Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund to enhance the state's work related to environmental and childhood cancers. Specific to the radiological monitoring project that is a piece of that work, we've been working with Dartmouth to develop both what we call a story map in ArcGIS that could be used for some public outreach and education around radiation and the monitoring that is done across the state. And exciting, also a new interactive web dashboard is in development that would make this data accessible to the public. And so that contract, continues to move through the process, but some of this work is underway. And again, when things are sort of in a good place to share between this commission and then SB 85, which I and many others also sit on, there's a lot of opportunities for sharing, I think, across the commissions. So now I want to sort of transition to a particular topic on the agenda. Yep, and Dr. Christine Bean is the director of the Public Health Lab. She's on the line this morning to address the request that was sent back in March from the Health Subcommittee in regards to storing PFAS blood samples that were collected as part of the MVD Community Exposure Assessment. So the DPHS response letter was sent back to the commission just yesterday, and I believe it was just circulated this morning. So I apologize that there wasn't more time to review that prior to the meeting. But Dr. Bean is here with us this morning to respond to comments or answer questions. So at this point, I can either give a quick review of the initial request or perhaps Mindy Mesmer, as chair of the Health Subcommittee, wants to give a quick review, and then we can invite Dr. Bean to summarize the response.
Ms. Mesmer, would you like to do that, or shall we let Ms. Bush?
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I think I'd like to let Ms. Bush proceed.
Sure. So the original request that was sent back in March, but then only received recently due, I think, to COVID and sort of the shutdown. It asked for some additional information on the original consent form that was shared with MVD study participants. So a copy of that consent form was also circulated this morning. They wish to hear sort of a summary of participants' expectations regarding the disposal of samples, ask for a specific copy of that original consent form, and then ask specifically around our ability to retain and maintain the samples, and also to provide a summary of the costs in order to do so. And so we've provided our response. And at this point, Dr. Bean, please perhaps summarize the response, and then I'm sure folks have some questions.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Senator Deach and committee members. My name is Christine Bean. I'm the director of the Public Health Laboratory in Concord, and I'm happy to be here today to summarize the response letter that was sent yesterday. So as you know, in 2016, we had a total of 270 individuals participate in the MVD Community Exposure Assessment. And all of those participants were required to register to participate online and complete an exposure assessment survey. They had blood samples drawn, and what they consented to at the time, and I can read you the one sentence of language from the consent letter. It says, and New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services will keep your blood sample only until the PFC testing program is complete, and then your blood sample will be destroyed. So this was language written into the consent letter when they agreed to participate. Now, due to the ongoing nature of PFAS, the PFAS response in New Hampshire, these samples remain in storage at the New Hampshire Public Health Laboratory. So what we need to do at this point in order to retain and maintain them, it will be necessary to reconsent these participants in order for us to be able to retain them and maintain them in our possession. So there's a short summary of expenses that would be required to do that. I can review that in a minute, but probably the main issue that we need to talk about is really in order to move forward with this reconsent process. There's a few questions that we have, and maybe we could discuss today while everyone is together on the phone. And the first is, what is the purpose for continuing to store these samples? So, for example, is there a specific study where these samples could or would be included? And are there specific tests that the committee wants performed on these samples? So that's one question. And the second is, what is the time frame for storing these samples? So they truly cannot be stored indefinitely due to resource constraints, but mainly as well as quality control issues related to long-term sample storage. So that's a second. So what is the purpose for continuing to store these, and what is the time frame for storing them? So that's a summary of what is written in the response letter to just get a little bit more information of what exactly you're looking for us to do for you.
And do we have some people from the health subcommittee who would like to respond to this? Representative Woods.
Just a quick question. What is the rate of degradation on these samples? This whole thing may be a moot point if, in fact, the rate of degradation is such that preserving them would serve no purpose.
Yeah, and that's a good question. It would truly depend on what would be requested for testing on these. So they are stored at -70 degrees where they can be maintained for a long period of time, but the question would be exactly what is the purpose for storing them and what types of tests would we be looking to, or do we even know that at this point?
Okay, and yes.
Representative Bohm?
Yes,
yeah,
well, please.
Thank you. Question, all the data that has been collected from the blood samples, I mean, do we really need to save the samples that will be degraded, but is there any more data that we can extract from these blood samples?
And I think that is what we're trying to understand is what data the members of the health subcommittee want or foresee that they might want. And Ms. Mesmer.
Yeah, I guess the request was made just so that we could preserve those samples with the possibility that in the future we would want to reanalyze them for using other methods. At the time they were done, there was, certainly it was early on in the process of our understanding laboratory methods. And so we were just requesting that they be saved. I am going to ask that because of the COVID issue, we as a health subcommittee have not been able to meet. I believe the environmental committee has not also been able to meet. We're not clear about the process by which we can start meeting again. So that was one of my questions. And so I would like to be able to prepare a formal request from our subcommittee be brought to the commission, full commission, in response to the letter that was just sent to us.
Okay, and that makes all the sense in the world. Okay, and we can talk with our Senate administrator afterwards and see about when the system is available for meeting. Representative Woods.
If we're going forward in that direction, I'll have to look through my notes, but for a refresher for myself, if it's convenient, if one of the folks from HHS could provide us with what tests have been done on these samples to date.
And I see Ms. Bush shaking her head, so go ahead, Ms. Bush.
Yeah, just that we can definitely compile that. There was a summary report, but we can also just compile a list of the complete list of tests and probably bring that to the next health subcommittee meeting.
Thank you. That'll help with my poor memory, and I can't find it in my notes at the moment.
Yeah, Ms. Murphy, do you have your hand up? Yeah.
I do. Thank you, Senator Deach. I just have a question in terms of blood samples. I know that the trace biomonitoring study, we don't have the results of that yet, but I wonder if you could share what the plan is for retention of those blood samples. I mean, is it similar? Was it a one-shot deal, or I'm just because we're looking for to determine public health impacts. We don't have a lot of data, and these blood samples I think are important. So just wondering if you could tell us that.
Yeah, sure. This is Christine Bean again. For the TRACE study and biomonitoring, as we continue to work on these biomonitoring studies, we get smarter and smarter as we go along. So what we have done this time is in the consent letter for biomonitoring, we have stated that we will retain these samples. If they agree to it, that we will retain these samples in our stores for future use. So, you know, as I just said, you know, you realize as you move along through through this work, what you should be asking for the consent up front, which would be quite helpful.
Thank you. I think that's part of the rationale for holding on to the first set is we didn't know what we might need it for later. And in hindsight, it would be a shame to lose that opportunity, even though it's a very minimal sample. It's something I think that it's important for us to talk about in the health subcommittee is, you know, what we might be able to do with that. Thank you.
Sure, and what we can share that language if you'd like to see it, just for your curiosity of what is in that consent letter for the TRACE.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any other? Ms. Masmer.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask about that letter, if you could provide a copy to us. And you talk about the need to go back to get that kind of consent to the participants. What kind of a level of effort would that require? Is there funding required to do that? Is there, it looks like it certainly isn't a one-time easy thing to do, but perhaps that would help us with being able to understand what may be necessary in terms of legislation or other ways to get money if necessary for that.
Yeah, in the budget that we put forward with the letter, that includes a minimal amount of funding that would be required for staff. It's about $2,000. So what we envision is that we would draft the reconsent letter, mail round one of those reconsent letters. It's been pushing 5 years now. So we would expect that we would have to do around 2 mailing and around 3 mailing as we try to reach these participants. So there's a minimal amount of funding that would be required, which is mainly time for staff.
And you're suggesting buying a whole new freezer, though?
Yeah, we have that in there too. So we're suggesting that we would like to buy a freezer for storage of samples, or as we move forward, a freezer.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I thank you both very much for your presentation, and if if Kathleen, you could coordinate with Rosemary and my assistant Ava to let us know when the biomonitoring meeting should be with the other groups. That would be great.
Yeah, so I'll coordinate with Dr. Bean about getting that complete list of tests for Representative Woods, as well as the trace consent form. I can send that directly to Ava, who could circulate it with the whole commission, and then work with Mindy Mesmer and the health subcommittee specifically to review that. And then yes, when the biomonitoring group is ready to share results, we can definitely coordinate a presentation.
That would be great. And then if you could copy at least the entire health subcommittee on the test letter, not just Representative Woods, that would be great. Okay. Representative Rung, do you have a question?
Actually, I just want to, before we move on to the next topic, I just want to comment. I believe I sent an email out. It could have been a month ago at least, regarding subcommittee meetings. Unfortunately, because of the need for standing committee meetings, the House Legislative Services, and I also believe the Senate Legislative Services, are not going to be able to host subcommittee virtual meetings, and that they request that if we need a subcommittee meeting, that they partner with the appropriate state agency to have that agency host the meeting. So, for example, Ms. Mesmer, if you need to call a health subcommittee meeting, you would partner with the Department of Health and Human Services to see if they can host that for you. And likewise with DES with an environmental subcommittee meeting. And I do think Joel Anderson was on the call, and I had spoken to him about this a while ago. I thought I had emailed the people about it. I'm trying to double check and resend that message.
So I can speak to the Senate side of it.
Okay.
If we have the availability. So right now we're still taking a lot of commission and study committee signups for Zoom time slots and dates. But if we get a date and time locked down in the next 24 hours or so, and it's open for you guys, then I'd be happy to help facilitate that. It's just a matter of making sure that the ones that have reports that are also due on November 1st have the ability to meet and get the reports in too. But if we have the ability to do it, then we can help you guys out.
Okay.
Well, that brings us to the next topic. And I will just mention then that the notice date is September 10th, I believe. So if you do want to notice a subcommittee meeting, that will have to happen by then. Alan, could you let me know, and I've forgotten what I needed to ask you. I know I will think of it in just a minute, but
I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here.
Okay, we'll move on to the next topic, which is let's think about what we actually want to accomplish. A couple of things that we've talked about as consequences of this commission, because obviously we could meet and have updates from now to infinity. Oh, okay, that was my question, Alan, is do we have to have a meeting, a report by November 1, or are we still optional because of the emergency?
To be honest, was the legislation, did it state that there was a November 1 report date?
Yes.
So the way, I mean, to be honest, there is not, a commission or study committee report police. So if it comes after that, then it's probably okay. But we're still trying to get reports in by the 1st. The emergency order didn't change the date where they're supposed to be in. But, if it came later that month, I don't think that there's going to be a huge, penalty or anything like that. But we are trying to get the reports that are due the 1st on the 1st.
Okay, well, so that focuses our next discussion. Apparently the question to my first bullet, shall we submit a report this year? There is not an emergency option to delay. So we will need to submit a report, and we can talk in a minute about the responsibilities involved there. So let us think about what kind of recommendations and outcomes we want from this commission. We had challenges that I showed meeting after meeting as part of the presentation and as a slideshow. But I think that if we forget that for a moment and just focus on what we want as outcomes. For instance, I know Ms. Paradise has said that considering how to get people off bottled water is one of the outcomes that she would like to come out of this commission. Are there other goals that people have that we can put as our goals? So the other goal that we had set was how to stop ongoing emissions. And I think we have quite a bit of data about that, and we'll have more when we know the outcome of the petition to delay. So I think that can be one goal that we talk about, and how to get people off bottled water. Do we have other goals of that sort? And Ms. Messmer.
A goal for us and the health subcommittee has been to look at the existing analysis of chronic disease rates and cancer rates, and have an update to that 2018 report that compares that the incidence rates to national average rates, not just the rest of the state. So that's something we've been talking about in our health subcommittee. That would be a goal of ours, to have a full assessment of that health information from the residents in the area.
Okay. Okay. And obviously this is something that won't be complete in this report, but it will be a goal and we can put a status. Okay. Okay. Any other goals that we have that we will discuss in the report that we're going to put out
yes,
very soon?
I'd like to suggest one.
I don't know who's talking, but go ahead.
Oh, sure. It's Wendy Thomas. I would like to add, and I bring this up every meeting, a recommendation that that produce and food and flora be tested in contaminated areas. This is an ongoing issue. And when I say food, I mean meat and eggs, including.
Okay, so this is, I had a couple notes in here from our ongoing meetings. I believe that, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Wimsatt or your predecessor who talked about the need for regulations for groundwater. Is this, and so I think this flora and fauna issue is a regulatory issue, right? We now have no regulations requiring this. So I think these two might actually be legislative actions. Senator Chandler, am I on the right track here?
Yes, I think that I do hear what you're saying, and I do think those may be things that we need to develop legislation going forward. That's something that the report could certainly include, whatever our recommendation is, regarding the issue of standards. We would just include in our report that we recommend legislation in the future.
Okay, so Mr. Wimsatt, am I right that we need additional regulations for groundwater?
Well, I'm not sure whether you're really referring to groundwater or to what Representative Thomas has mentioned about produce and flora and fauna and such.
No, this refers to past conversations. Ms. Messmer, do you remember what I'm referring to, that this has been mentioned a number of times? Or does anyone else remember this in the past discussions of the fact that we were lacking regulations in certain areas and therefore could not deal with some of the issues at Saint-Gobain? Nobody else remembers this?
So if
yeah, I don't know if Mike wants to go ahead, but it could have been due to the injunction with the new rules in place. And Mike, maybe you can speak to the fact that when there are drinking water rules in place, they become the de facto groundwater standards.
Right. So at this point, we have clear authority to regulate and investigate and address groundwater and drinking water quality issues. We have an enforceable drinking water maximum contaminant limit, or MCL, and we have an enforceable ambient groundwater quality standard. So I think the groundwater piece has been addressed.
Okay.
With respect to Representative Thomas's question, I would note that, you know, we don't currently have in our site investigation requirements that are, you know, authorized by statute and implemented through administrative rules, a requirement to test produce or vegetation or what have you. That gets into an area I do want to note, and it may be we need to talk to the Department of Agriculture, Market and Foods, because DES does not regulate the quality of foods. That's the regulatory purview of the Department of Agriculture, Markets and Foods. So if we're going down the road of trying to the extent it were possible to set standards in produce or what have you, that would be something that would have to be accomplished through the enabling statutes that give that department its authorities, as I understand it.
Ms. Mesmer.
So I just had one question as a follow-up to Mr. Wimsatt about that. So do you feel that you have enough authority with respect to private wells that is necessary to make sure that the Saint-Gobain issue is handled? The second thing I wanted to state was that, you know, we have regulated 4 of these chemicals now. We know, based on what EPA sampling told us, that 190 PFAS chemicals are coming out of those stacks every day. 147 of them EPA had not seen until that sampling was done. So it is a question of, you know, we're way behind the mark when it comes to regulating what's actually coming out of those stacks. And if just because they're not using as much of the legacy compounds doesn't mean that what they're emitting is actually safe and not contaminating our groundwater. So hopefully that will be abated with the remediation that's planned when that goes into effect, plus the HF scrubber, which I think is, I agree with the town of Merrimack's appeal on that. But, you know, as a state, regulating these chemicals is not, you know, we're way behind what the industry has, you know, created with these chemicals. So we've only got 4 regulated right now. And when you look at things like wastewater and biosolids applications, those are probably going to be the newer chemicals that are concerning to us in terms of impacting, you know, our streams and waterways, because if they have switched over to the newer compounds, those are still being concentrated in waste biosolids and spread on the ground in various places, if that's still a practice. So, you know, we are way behind the industry in terms of really regulating this set of chemicals in a way that protects public health. So if I could have an answer to my first question, Mike, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, your first question. Yeah, I think the agency feels that it has complete, you know, adequate authority to, you know, when we learn about a facility that's had a release, we don't think there's anything that stands in the way of us asserting our authority to require sampling of the drinking water wells, and to the extent those wells are determined to be impacted by the facility, to assert its authority to require them to address either through, you know, with immediately with bottled water, and then longer term with an alternate water source. So I think our authorities are pretty complete at this point on that. I can't envision, you know, a legislation that would be required to enhance that at this point. With regard to your second comment, yeah, I mean, I think that there's no question that there are a lot of other PFAS compounds other than the 4 that we regulate right now, and not very much is known about what potential impacts those might have. It is our hope that the thermal oxidizer that's been required by the Air Resources Permit would have a significant impact on treating not only the 4 compounds that we regulate currently, but the additional compounds that might be involved.
Okay. Representative Rung.
Yeah, 2 points. One of the things I'd like us to consider for the final report is to encourage the education of healthcare providers about the health impacts of PFAS exposure. We're learning more and more about that, and I think having that education component is going to be an important guidance that we give. I know there's some federal legislation that's been introduced by Senator Shaheen on that, but I think it's important for us to take a stand on the importance of educating providers. And then second of all, it may not be something in the final report per se, but that we make sure that the communication of it is broad, that it goes nationally, even internationally. New Hampshire has really led the country in passing stricter MCLs. And I think a lot of states might be looking to us to see what we're going to do with that, or our efforts in the area of PFAS. And then thirdly, separate from the actual commission report, is if we do need more time, if we find that November 1st is too limiting for us, I'm confident that Governor Sununu would issue an executive order extending deadlines, not just for our commission, but other ones as well that might be in the same position we're in.
I would also say that in my experience with speaking to the other commissions and the study committees, that in their reports that they're planning on filing, if there was a situation where they didn't have enough time to deliberate a certain issue, or they felt as though there was more work to be done on something, then they're going to put that into the report, either recommend that there should be legislation filed to reauthorize a commission or a study committee, or requesting a executive action like you just suggested. Mm-hmm. But that's something that a lot of these study committees and commissions are actually going to put into the report.
Okay. But I think it's definitely, I don't think we should rush it if we need extra time. And I think an executive order might be a very simple and straight action for the governor to take that would help us out. But it doesn't preclude us from putting out a report November 1st, but a final report, we may need more time, particularly since the subcommittees haven't been able to meet.
Okay. I think that when we're talking about writing the report, we have two steps. And one is to put together the recommendations on these topics. And so far, the topics I have are keeping the samples, of course, how to minimize ongoing emissions, the health, comparing incidents in the state to our national incidence of levels, and then possible regulations for food, flora, and fauna, and the fact that we'll have to get together with the Department of Ag on that. And then the fact that we want to educate healthcare providers. Those are the ones that I have. I don't know, Rosemary, did you grab any others as people were speaking?
Nope, those are the ones I have too.
Okay. So what I would recommend as process is that we have the members of the policy subcommittee then look at those topics and do some recommendations as to what those might look for. Now, on the policy subcommittee, I see we definitely have Mike, so we definitely have environment covered. And Nancy, you are on the health subcommittee, right? So we have people from both health and environment on the policy committee, right? So I want to make sure that, yeah, okay. And so Representative Thomas, I don't see you on the policy committee, but you'll want to make clear to them what it is that you want to put and probably attend that meeting.
I will, and I would also like to make one other suggestion that if we're going to recommend legislation for looking at the flora and fauna, that we also recommend legislation for setting standards for soil and biosolids because we don't have that right now.
Okay, so Mr. Wimsatt.
Yeah, if I could comment on that. So I didn't mention it in my update, but I think it's relevant. We are actually just about to enter into an agreement with USGS for what probably is on the order of a 2-year study to do some statewide soil sampling and then do some laboratory analysis of those soil samples to try to develop some of the scientific parameters associated with soils in the state and how they leach PFAS under certain conditions. It's difficult work, it's important work, and we would hope that the samples will be collected and analyzed this fall and early winter, and then that work will go on during the winter and into next summer, with the final report, we believe, coming from USGS around early 2022. So I guess what I would say is that is absolutely important work, but I'm not sure that legislation in the coming session would necessarily be helpful to us at this point. I think with what we learned from that process, something a little bit later would probably be better. What I don't want to happen is the legislation to get out in front of the work that we're doing in a way that means that we're being asked to do something before we have the data that we really need to do it well. And Ellen is as acutely aware of the concern about this as we are at DES, but we really have this work is advancing.
Yeah, we've been through that process once, right? We don't need to repeat that.
Well, and that's good to hear. I just want to make sure the request doesn't get lost or the interest doesn't get lost.
I think that's what the report says. The report says this is what's going on. This is when we think the regulations should be set. And we don't try to set them, I think. Yes, Mr. Bendazian. You need to unmute.
Yes. If I can just add, PFAS has been added to the DES list of recommended tests for new wells. I don't know to what extent people are doing that, but that's statewide data that we ought to be compiling and looking at what those results are and where we're finding PFAS in addition to where we already know it is or expect it to be. And if those numbers are too low, then maybe we ought to consider requiring that in the future. And I guess separate from that, I would also like to look at requiring a study over time of certain representative areas. You know, for example, in Bedford, we have a great concern about migration once wells are decommissioned. And the majority of residents in Bedford and really across the state are dependent on private drinking water wells. So I think that type of study would be something we should undertake as a committee over the next few years.
The study of migration from decommissioned wells?
And you know, affected seasonally, affected by drought. You know, identify some study areas based on the geology and then study them sequentially over time to see what change there is and what factors influence that change. I think Joe Ayat's here and muted, but I think what he told us as a subcommittee is that you know, things are not always as intuitive as they seem. So.
Okay. All right. And I see that you are on the policy committee, so that's good. All right. So what I was going to suggest as process is that we have this list, which will show up in our minutes. If you could just, Rosemary, if you could pull these out and put them as a list in addition to writing out the minutes in the normal fashion. If you could list the items that we're going to ask the policy subcommittee to consider, then we'll have them consider them. But I'm suggesting that our communications committee be responsible for actually writing up the report. So the policy committee just gives us the content for these areas. And then it'd be up to the communications committee to put that into a report so that we break up the responsibilities a little bit here. Does that sound okay to everybody? So Looking at who is on the communications, that would be me, Rosemary, Wendy, and Nancy, then would be responsible for putting the report together. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think the question is going to be, and understand that the report is just showing status as we have now. You don't have to try to complete any additional work. You're not trying to write the regulations or anything like that. You're just saying, here's where we at, here's what we want to accomplish. And so it's literally just a report. I think that you can get through it in one meeting of the policy committee. So I think this is a matter of then checking in with Alan. He's under New Hampshire Senate Administrator here, that fellow, Alan Raff. Who wants to lead this effort and set up the meeting? Rosemary, you know the drill. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rosemary will chair this subcommittee and set up the meeting with Alan. Then once you're able to set that date, and then we should have information from you immediately after your meeting, because I don't think, as I say, you're not trying to accomplish something, you're just reporting the status of where we're at and what we want to do. And then we can set up the communications committee meeting after we hear when your committee meeting is going to hear. And yes, I do think that probably it will be after the election, since I think all four of us on there are running. So I think it will be later in November than the 1st, but we can set that up for sometime in the middle. So Alan, you were saying you don't think that we do, if we're just a week late or a week or two late, we don't need to request any kind of special postponement?
I don't. My understanding of this is, and this goes back to sessions past, is that there really isn't like a police that is going to say, hey, you're a few days late on this. It's the idea is to get it in as soon as possible. If we could get it in by the 1st, great. But the idea is to just have the report in as soon as possible, close to the date.
And then we submit to the House, do we not, to House leadership, since this is a House commission?
Whatever it says in the legislation, usually it dictates there.
Okay. All right, good enough. All right, so that is what I was hoping to accomplish. Do we have any, did anyone have any questions over that process or suggestions of doing things differently? Yes, Rosemary. You're muted.
Okay. So setting up the policy subcommittee, you're not suggesting I wait until November. I can do that probably in a couple of weeks. I mean, the notice has to be in by September 10th, correct?
So I'm so sorry to interrupt. As far as the Senate calendar goes and ensuring that there is sufficient notice. So in the summer months, which surprisingly enough is ending very soon, the Senate calendar is only published bi-weekly. So for this upcoming calendar, so for the dates, something to be scheduled, whether it's a subcommittee or a commission meeting as a whole, if there was a meeting supposed to be held Monday, I think the 14th through Friday, the 25th of September, I, or Representative Rung, would need to properly schedule that and have it published in the Senate calendar by September 10th and at noon is the calendar deadline for the dates of September 14th through September 25th. Then there will be an additional calendar after that. But if you're trying to schedule within those dates, that's the Senate calendar deadline for those dates, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that the policy meeting can be within those dates. Yeah. And then once we find out when the policy meeting is, then we'll schedule for the communications meeting in the next calendar.
Okay, so I see where in the chat, Senator Deach, you listed the members of the policy committee. Yeah, just to save time and chasing cats, maybe does in 2 weeks on this time of like Friday at 10 o'clock, would that work for everybody? That would be then the 18th.
Let me just check and see if that's available. Hold on.
Yeah, I think you already told me that it was not, Alan. I think that's going to have to be another date. Alan already told me.
Okay. I was just kind of hoping if we could do the date now while everybody's on the call.
And maybe the Thursday. Alan, do you have the calendar?
Yeah, I do right now. What was the date that you were asking about?
Well, I was thinking about the 18th, 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today. We do not have anything on the 18th right now, actually.
So does 10 o'clock on the 18th work for members of the policy subcommittee?
This is Mike Wimsatt. If it could, I can make it work, but if it could be in the afternoon, that would be much better for me.
Okay. 1 o'clock, Mike, does 1 o'clock?
Absolutely.
Does 1 o'clock work for? Alan, does that still work for you?
Yes, that is open. So Friday, September 18th at 1 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Ava, you have that information then for the calendar.
Yep. So I'll connect with Alan and I will ensure that that is submitted in the Senate calendar by the September 10th noon deadline.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course. And just to be clear, that's for the policy subcommittee, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Can we not do something similar for the other subcommittees? Or I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and under other business and set all the subcommittee meetings. So who would like to suggest a time and date for the Health and Human Services Subcommittee? Did you folks want to meet? I know the environmental subcommittee is hoping to meet after the decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes well, it would have to be after the 10th anyway, because we have to put it in the calendar.
Right. So what are there particular available days and times that we can meet?
If you want to let me know what the week you're looking at, or day, I can tell you, because we have like 30 of these scheduled right now.
Yep.
So I'll run through them.
How about the week of September 28th?
The 28th. Yeah, it looks like actually we are free most of that week.
Do the other members of the committee want to try for October 1st at say 1 p.m. or in the morning?
I would not be able to do it the 30th or October 1st.
Is that Chris?
This is Chris, yes.
You're not on the health subcommittee though, are you?
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry.
It's
okay. And
okay.
just to confirm, is this outside of the window that we're supposed to be scheduling? Like what Ava had just said about September
I'm so sorry. It does sound a little confusing. So in the summer months, as I mentioned, the calendar is published bi-weekly. So you can schedule whenever. There are just certain deadlines depending on the date in which you want to schedule that you would have to have those dates submitted by. Does that make sense?
Thanks for clarifying.
Of course.
The first at 1 p.m. Oh, sorry, Nancy.
I'm sorry. It's okay with me, Mindy. Either that date's fine, and regardless, Monday, I'm sorry, early morning or afternoon's fine.
How about 9 or 10 a.m. on October 1st?
Either one.
9 is better for me, Katie.
Say that again. 9.
The 9 a.m. is better.
Okay. Is everyone okay with 9 o'clock on October 1st?
Yes, fine with me.
Perfect. Nancy?
Yes.
Great.
I have you locked in for the 1st at 9 a.m.
Excellent.
And it's Ava again. So sorry. Before we move forward in other subcommittees, I did want to ask the chair, Senator Deach, if you wanted to schedule a commission meeting as a whole before we start locking in some subcommittee meetings, or did you want to hold off on that? Because October 2nd is the first Friday of the month, which I know is usually when you'd prefer to schedule commission meetings as a whole. So before we continue.
Yeah, I think I would like, because we're going to have so many subcommittee meetings and be moving forward, I think I would like to get those done and move on to the report. What I think what I want to do is to try to get the draft report to everyone for the November, what's that Friday meeting?
November 6th. Yeah,
the November 6th meeting, that we could have the draft report ready and review that. The only big question in there is if really the decision on the delay petition is really going to require us to meet again. And I'm not sure that if the environmental subcommittee meets and puts their recommendations into any policy recommendations, I'm not sure that we need to have a meeting of the entire commission before November. Does anyone have any feelings one way or the other on the necessity for an October meeting? Okay, so what if, I'll tell you, what if the communications committee meets that Friday?
And Senator, I have a question about that. Yeah. Would we want to have a meeting though to go over the report? Because we do have to finalize it, or are we not going to try for November 1st? Or, sorry, I wasn't clear on
that. I'm suggesting that we don't try for November 1st. And so okay. I'm suggesting that our meeting to go over the report is November 6th.
Got it.
And then we would submit after. So I'm asking now, I can put the members of the...
Senator Deach, may I interrupt just a second?
Yes, please.
I just want to mention that November 6th is the Friday after the election, and I would imagine that everyone will be very busy who is either on the ticket or working in the legislature right now with perhaps recounts or other kinds of activities going on then. I think it might be a tricky day to set the meeting. I'm wondering, I know October is going to be difficult, but if we could try to have a meeting in October, even if we tried to limit it to a very short meeting where we, kind of pull together a draft. I don't know the best schedule, but I think November 6th might be a tricky day when I think about the usual activity on the Friday immediately following an election.
Okay. Yeah, and actually we have an organizational caucus I see right now. Okay, so I would suggest then that we move it to Friday, November 13, because I don't want to try to have a draft before, honestly. How is Friday, November 13 for the general commission meeting? Does anyone have problems with that? And that would be at 10 a.m. Is everyone okay? All right.
Senator Deach, I'm sorry, I was muted. What was the date on that again?
Friday, November 13.
Oh, okay.
10 a.m.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And is that open, Alan? Is Alan still here?
Yes, it is open, Senator.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay. All right. So we've got that one. How about for the communications committee, which is Representative Murphy, Representative Thomas, Representative Rung, and myself on the when we would normally have our October meeting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so that would be the communications subcommittee on October, I'm getting in the wrong month here. October 2nd, no, yes, October 2nd.
That's good.
Okay, and then if we can have all this other subcommittees before that date so that we have a complete policy recommendation from you all.
And I'm sorry, if that October 2nd meeting, does that start at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock?
Does anyone care? We'll do 10 unless someone wants it. Oh, Ms. Forty, I'm sorry, you have your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. No, that's okay. I know it's hard to see everybody. I just wanted to say in general, first, I know that COVID has affected our commission just like everybody else. But just from like the public's point of view, what I'm hearing on the ground is people really want to know what this commission is doing, what are the actions, what's going on. A lot of people I tell like, hey, I'm on this commission. They don't even know we exist, even if they know about PFAS. And then there are plenty of people who just don't even know the issue. So I just want to underscore, the importance of this report and then getting it out there, even if it can't be as complete as we would have liked, as robust, in the best of circumstances. And just in terms of, I want to help on whatever subcommittee needs the help. I had attended one of the health subcommittee meetings. I know I had joined this commission a little later than everyone else. So if there is somewhere that I can be needed, I have communications experience. I have a master's in public policy. If I can be on policy, I'm really looking just for some direction where I can be most useful because I want to contribute, but I don't know where I'm needed. Thank you.
We'd love to have you on communications. Anyone else want Ms. Forty's skills?
I think you'd be great on policy as well. So I think if you don't mind being on both subcommittees, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm down. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so,
I just want to address your other point about that people aren't aware. What I'll do is when I send out the draft minutes, I'll put the link to our website. It is up to date with documents that we've collected and the minutes. And so maybe if you can direct people there, they can read the minutes to really know what we've discussed. I've made the minutes pretty specific as minutes go. So, if people can plow through it, it should give them a good idea.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Great. Okay. I really appreciate that. And I'm sorry that we have overlooked appointing you to a subcommittee. And I thank you for bringing that up. Do we have, are all the subcommittees scheduled? Okay.
I only have policy, health, communications. Those are the only three that I have dates written down from our conversation of what's going to be scheduled.
Okay, well, we certainly need environmental after the, Ms. Harrington, go ahead.
I just need, excuse me, a little clarification. If I understand correctly, you want to be able to have all the subcommittees have what they're going to recommend to the policy committee, and then the policy committee will, the communication will follow and actually write up the report, the draft. Is that correct?
The subcommittees should go to the policy committee. The policy committee content should go to the communications committee.
Exactly.
Do we have things in the wrong order, Nancy?
No, that's exactly, but I wanted to verify that before my next question, because we have our health committee meeting on October 1st, and yet the policy committee meeting is September 18th. Is that correct?
Well, that's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder if we could switch those dates and maybe put policy on the 1st, communications on the 2nd of October, and then move health to the 18th.
It's got to be earlier. That's correct, because the policy committee will need the information from the health committee.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mindy, does that make sense to you?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And so we need to schedule the environmental subcommittee, which I know will want to discuss the outcomes from the petition or the delay.
This is Mike Wimsatt. I just want to share that that week of September 28th through October 2nd, I am not available and I'm not going to have access to computer connections. So I'm not going to be available for any meetings that week.
Good for you.
Yeah.
If I might make just one comment, and I don't want to belabor this, but I want to make the point that our November 1st report is simply an interim report. So I don't think we need to, if it were solely up to me, my preference would be to get the report in November 1st. I am absolutely willing to do what the committee chooses, but I think that we need to keep in mind that it is an interim report and not a final report. And I just wanted to make that comment. And that interim report may very well just say, these are the issues we're exploring and these are the directions we're moving in. And it is our intention to continue to study this, that, or whatever it is. But I do want to make it clear that it is an interim report, not a final report.
Okay, it's just, well, then we will, if the communications committee is going to, write the report, and then we would have to meet.
I realize that there's a time crunch. This is not easy, and I am not, digging my heels in by any means. I'm just saying that if we find ourselves with enough information, that maybe we shoot for the first. But
well, the first is a Sunday, so we would have to have it for Halloween, and so we would have to, submit it by the 30th. I'm unless someone else feels really important about this, I think that we could do the 13th. And I mean, if we're going to do the 30th, all right. Do people want to meet on the 30th then, so we could move the meeting up a week instead of back a week? Would that make people feel more comfortable?
Good.
Yes. Oh, that's the week you're not here? No.
That's correct. But I also wanted to suggest, and I'm very receptive to Senator Shanley's comments on this. I mean, I'm looking at the legislation, and this commission is in place with its final report due November 2024, with interim reports due every November 1st between now and then. I think the commission's done a great job of educating itself on the issues and identifying a number of issues that we want to explore further, either for additional work from the agencies or others, as well as potential legislation. But I don't think this report is going to be able, no matter how we do it, to really lay it all out in a way that is going to be, sort of determinative of what happens in the next few months. And I think what we could do, given that it's an election year and the fall of our pandemic, I'm just wondering if we don't issue a report that says and I think we almost could write it now, these are the issues that the commission has explored and really wishes to, and these are the issues the commission wishes to explore much further in the coming months. And that is our interim report. And then we're off to the races following that, going ahead and running to ground all these issues, so that, at a future date, whether it's between now and November of 2021 or at November 2021, a report that really lays this out and shows the value and the depth of the work that we're doing.
And that, I'll just say again, that's what a lot of the commissions and study committees that I've been listening in on and helping out with have said they're going to do. Basically just giving that are interim reports, and even some that were final reports that didn't have enough time to do what they wanted to do. They're saying, hey, this is where we are. This is what we'd like to continue doing. And that's what they plan on doing.
Okay, I do think that's the extent of what we plan to do. So the question is then, we do want to have a final meeting and an approval of the draft. And of course, the draft will be sent out in advance. So if we still need to have we may want to change the policy committee meeting, but we still need to schedule an environmental committee meeting. And then the meeting to review the draft could be October 30th. Does anyone have a problem with October 30th?
I'm good.
10 a.m.
So that's instead of November 13th, we're going to do October.
Correct. Yeah. But Mr. Wims, that's when you're gone, is it? I thought you were gone September through October.
No, I'm sorry, I'm off by a month. October 30th is fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So October 30th, then will be our general commission meeting, 10 a.m. and which will review the report. And of course, we will send out drafts beforehand. And October 2nd, we have October 1st is a problem for Mr. Wimsatt. And then you need an environmental meeting to discuss the results of the delay permit or delay request.
And you can just, anybody with the environmental subcommittee, just let Ava, myself, Senator Teach, or Rep. Brung know when you guys plan on doing that, and we'll try to fit it in wherever.
Well, yeah, we still got a few minutes here, so let's try to do that. When's the environmental subcommittee going to meet? Someone make a suggestion.
Who's the chair of that committee?
I believe Ms. Mesmer is the chair.
Chris is.
Chris, oh, okay.
He's on mute.
Mr. Bandasian, when is your committee going to meet?
Hold on a second. So
this is Joe Ayotte. I will just say that I have a bunch of things scheduled, but whatever the consensus of the group is, I will make it work. It's far enough out.
So what is availability the week of the 14th?
So it looks like it's open. 14th, looks like it's so wide open.
Chris, we had the policy subcommittee scheduled for September 18th, but I think that's putting the cart before the horse. So that date, we could, instead of having it for the policy subcommittee, have it for environmental.
I apologize. I thought you were talking about October. You were talking about September.
Oh yeah, because we have that September 18th date that we scheduled earlier in this discussion. Was that taken by health or?
Yeah, I think that's being taken by health.
Oh, it's been taken by health. Okay, I got it.
So that week of September 14th, we do have a lot of other things that are booked. So let me know what time you were thinking. I can see if we have it open.
Probably be easier to ask you if you have a morning or afternoon.
Yeah, well, just which day though? Which day were you thinking?
Anything other than the 18th?
Okay, so we have the 17th in the morning open. We have Tuesday the 15th in the afternoon, all of Wednesday. We have Monday the 14th in the afternoon.
Excuse me, I don't think we took that last Friday of that week as the health subcommittee. I thought we did the 30th, right?
Yeah, I have policy here for...
yeah, we didn't take that date.
That's what we have to decide.
Yeah. All right, I think everybody needs to take a step back. Let's breathe. We'll get through this.
No, I'm just trying to, we're confused. That's
okay.
All.
Yeah. So yeah, we had to change the health subcommittee away from the 30th because as Ms. Harrington pointed out, we couldn't put the policy committee before the health subcommittee. So tentatively, we have the health subcommittee on the 18th. We need to schedule the environmental subject committee, hopefully for that earlier that week. And then maybe the policy the next week.
So Monday and Tuesday, so the 14th and the 15th, the afternoon is open. Wednesday is wide open. and Thursday morning is open.
I'm sorry, this is Ava. So I just want to be clear that we are talking about the month of September, not October. So September.
Veto day, right.
Right. So that's what I just wanted to confirm is September, that Wednesday, senators will be, it's veto day. So that's off limits. And I don't know if there are going to be any preliminary Zoom calls that week in preparation for session and veto day on this Zoom account. So I just wanted to, I know we're getting in the weeds here and we're just talking about dates sometimes. So previously scheduled events can get kind of in the back of your head. So I just wanted to bring that up. But
so was Monday afternoon available, Ellen? Is that when you said?
Yes.
Okay. Environment, can you make it Monday afternoon?
What's that way? Yeah.
14th. That's the 14th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that works for me. This is Joe Ayot.
And that would be for 1 p.m., Senator?
1 p.m., everybody? Okay, 1 p.m. Monday. Okay. And now you have to figure out a date that Mr. Wimsatt can come, which may be 7/21. That week of the 21st for the policy committee. Rosemary, do you want to suggest a date for the policy committee that's in the week of the 21st, along with Alan?
I'm open. Alan, tell me what's available.
All right, so the 21st is booked up pretty much all day. Tuesday is booked up all day. Wednesday is open. Thursday afternoon is open. And Friday is booked up.
Okay, so what if we look at, you said Wednesday in the afternoon?
Wednesday, the entire day is open right now.
So policy committee, Wednesday at 10 a.m. Is that?
I can't do that.
You can't?
No.
Chris, is there any time during that day that works for you?
It's hard to say. So,
Is Thursday better?
Thursday is better. Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
That's open.
Representative Woods has his hand up.
Yes, I apologize. I have another commission meeting in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
We're in the process of writing our final report, which will be a final report. So my apologies. I guess for the record, you need it that I am exiting at the moment. I presume that the dates that we're talking about will be published as a list. So I'll be able to see who's meeting when and where and so forth in a tabulated form would be great.
Okay, will do.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you, Representative.
Thank you. So I'm looking at Thursday, September 24th at 1 p.m. for a policy subcommittee.
That is open.
Okay, great. We've got that set then.
Terrific. Okay, I think we're set. Those will show up in the minutes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Ms. Harrington, and a second?
I'll second. Wendy Thomas.
Representative Thomas. All in favor?
You know what?
Okay, we're not going to do a roll call. I'm sorry. We're not going to do a roll call.
Yeah.
All in favor, aye.
Everybody says aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, great. I got it. Who made the motion? Was it? Oh, okay. Thank you, Nancy. All right, I got the roll. Everybody says they approve of the adjourning. Got it.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.